Hey everyone, your local expert Josh here with our first episode of Broker Talk. So thank you for tuning in. Our first episode here. This series is meant to be a new series that we do that is tailored to generate some discussion around business, community, and real estate in our area. Today we're actually going to take some time to follow up or look at the first blog post that we did last in January, and that can be seen on our website. And the blog post was "Why Shop Local?" So with that, I want to start out with a couple definitions of what people use to shop local to describe is frequenting locally owned places to help keep a more sustainable and thriving local economy. So that's really important for our area, being that we have such a cyclical environment here, with the summer being so high and more people and the winter being so low. We have kind of a cyclical workforce, which is tough in some cases. So that's really important for our area. And I also want to define what a locally owned business is compared to what we're kind of talking about here as a franchise business. So a locally owned business is a business that's one locally owned by a community member, and it's native to the community that it serves. So that's one that's important. And another thing that goes into the locally owned business is that, keep in mind, is that they don't have any financial obligation to an outside source or an outside person or company outside of our community. Okay. Now, local businesses come in all shapes and forms. They can be your local retailers, local grocers, farmers, and even your local real estate brokers. Okay. The other side of things is what we call franchise. Now, a franchise, I'm sure everyone's heard of what a franchise is. A franchise is essentially what I try to explain it as a business in a box. It's essentially a name, brand, and set of procedures that a company that was created in some cases many years ago. Sometimes there's newer franchises or what have you, but they were typically created in some other place, and then they essentially sell their name and brand and procedure to people that are interested in buying. So buying in, okay? And what will happen usually is in the real estate business, and that's what we'll be using for examples. We know real estate, so we'll use real estate to kind of show examples of what we're talking about from a business perspective or from the economy perspective. So in the real estate business, you have franchise brokerages, which is essentially any of the large names that you've seen out there. And what those brokerages do is they have that brand, that procedure, and kind of a way of doing business that they will allow a broker to buy into. And typically what happens with a franchise is you usually buy in with a certain amount of money, and then that franchise tells you you can use their name, you have their set of procedures and the way they go about doing business. And then after that, they don't do that for free. So not only, some of them have buy-ins, but most of them have royalty fees. Now the royalty fees are kind of what we're referring to when we're talking about money that is actually taken from our local economy and sent out of our area to wherever those brokerages, those brands are headquartered. Okay, so typically with a franchise brokerage, real estate brokerage, you're looking at probably around 8% of the revenue generated in our community is actually going to be sent out to that brokerage's headquarters, wherever they're headquartered, okay? So that's 8% of a really large industry for our local economy. That's a big number there. And that's really the issue that we're looking at. When it comes to shopping local, a lot of people, because these brands have been around for so long, a lot of people might not realize that these brands are franchises. They're franchised. Now they might be owned by a local community member, but that local community member that has bought into that business name does have a financial obligation outside of our community. Okay, so if we take that one step further, our real estate industry here is a pretty big for our area. I'm looking at the 6-county area, and we have a real estate industry that does over $4 billion in transactions per year, right? Now that kind of misrepresents how much is going out to an outside source. So to really hone in on what is going out to an outside source when we refer to the leakage or why you should shop local as opposed to going with a franchise, is in the real estate business, the real estate brokers have contracts or negotiated contracts with the real estate agents that they work with. So those real estate agents then will go out and look and buy, to help people buy and sell properties. And then when that agent is paid for their service, the brokerage typically has some sort of percentage in that amount, right? So a brokerage will have some sort of percentage in each transaction that goes through that they're paid for the service that they offer to their real estate agents. It is that fee right there that is then, I call it tax. It's not necessarily taxed by the government, but it would be garnished or taxed by the franchise. And like I said, it's for revenue. It's not profit. So right when that dollar comes through the front door, it's taken its share out right there. They don't get to pay taxes first. When it comes down to it, they're not paying their other business expenses. They're not paying things in our local community. And when I say 8% on that, it's actually probably around 6% for the royalty fee. But a lot of these brokerages offer marketing and branding, which is the name that they have. So they usually tack on another 2% for that. So if you think about it, there's multiple locations of franchise brokerages in our area. Those multiple locations generate, I would say, I haven't looked at their balance sheets or anything like that, but it's easy to see that they generate millions of dollars per year out of all in the 6-county area with all the shops that are out there. It's easy to say that those brokerages generate millions of dollars in revenue per year, and it's that millions of dollars in revenue that would have that 8% tag on it. Okay, so that's really big. And to give you an idea of how much the franchise brokerage system has control over our area. For example, I have some stats here. So, the number one firm in our area actually controls 47%. So out of $4 billion, one entity controls 47% of the sales in that. So just chew on that for a second. That's pretty crazy right there. In other words, too, the top 9 firms out of 10, so the top 9 companies out of 10 that have the highest sales volume in our 6-county area, 9 out of those 10 are all franchise brokerages. And those 9 actually control over 85 to 90% of the sales volume in our area. So, those brokerages need agents to actually control that much of the sales volume, but it's those agents that generate that commission and bring that commission in, which is being, split between the brokerage and the real estate agent. So that's really important to take note on that. That's a ton of money that's going out there. Now, one thing I really want to hit on with this topic, because I know this topic might ruffle some feathers, it might cause some, hopefully, candid discussion about, maybe taking a second look at who we're dealing with when we go through that big transaction of our lives. When we go to buy a new home or sell a home, I think that you should try to be cognizant of who you're dealing with. And the big thing is that want to make sure that we really hit on that. The real estate brokerages, the brand and the royalty fees and all of that, they're definitely not local. Okay, when you have this big box real estate firm, they're definitely not local in regards to the brand and where that money's going. Now, the real estate agents that live, work, and love our area here, that have been in the area for a while and have built their business, now those agents are local, right? So don't get me wrong in saying that or thinking that I'm saying that real estate agents that work with franchise brokerages are not local. They certainly are. They're members of this community just like everybody else. However, when you have a decision, everybody has the same decision as a real estate agent, right? You can get your real estate license and you can go and work for a brokerage that is a franchise brokerage, or you can go and work for a locally owned independent brokerage. So those are 2 options there. You can also get your real estate brokerage license and start your own brokerage. So that's another, or you can buy into a franchise brokerage. So those are your options. Everyone has those options. I see it from all sides, as I actually Obviously, we are an independently, locally owned brokerage, Northern Den Realty. But I see the ease in doing business with a franchise if I were to look at it from, those brokers' perspective. With that situation, a broker can really scale their business probably faster than they would have normally been able to with just taking on the name of a franchise. I see that. I understand that's helpful. There's also probably great marketing opportunities that those brokerages, franchises give to their in terms of their network on a national scale, which I completely understand that. If you have a national buyer that's moving in from a different state and they want to find a high value luxury home in our city, we actually have, obviously everyone knows we have a pretty unique real estate market in that we have from the lowest to the highest costs. You can literally find something on the bay that's really, really expensive, maybe in the millions, and you could also find a modest home out in a more rural development area, and that could all be within 5 or 10 miles of each other. So we have a really diverse real estate market, which is really cool, really nice, and exciting there. But it is one of those things you should think about. Okay. I would love for anybody to put up any questions on this video, on any of the information that we're going over. Really what it comes down to is that it's important to shop local so that we can try to craft a sustainable economy for our local businesses, for everyone involved in our local community. That's really important. And in order to do that, we should try to frequent the locally owned businesses over a franchise business. Whenever possible, right? So, that and to take it away from real estate for a second here, that means, maybe going to a locally owned grocery store as opposed to a, franchise chain store. Maybe that is going to a retailer that is downtown, or maybe not downtown, maybe a local retailer that's outside of town, but still in the area that's local and, locally owned, right? Maybe that is, instead of going out to a chain restaurant, you go out to a locally owned restaurant. This week is actually the restaurant week for Traverse City, downtown Traverse City. That is a big event for our community, and that is all about supporting local. That those events come around with the downtown authority puts these events together to hopefully get people to come down, but also show them the importance of shopping local. Now, we every year have, when we go into the fall or to the winter, a drop-off in regards to the employment. A lot of businesses are still looking for employment, or they're having to drop a lot of their employment because they don't have the workload that they would need to support all the employees that they have because of our cyclical environment. So one thing to take into consideration is when we make the choice to give those local businesses more of our business, then they are going to be in a better position to, whether or not make it through the winter. We have a lot of great businesses downtown, a lot of great businesses in our area, but not only make it through, but thrive. We want to get to a situation in our community where we're not trying to just make it through the winter so that we can get to the summer. Ideally, for everyone in the community, it's always best to have an economy that is healthy throughout the year, where we can sustain by ourselves without having too much of a support from outside help, or too many people outside that are locked into the revenues that we generate in our community. So that's what I wanted to go over today on this first video. I'm going to keep learning how we're going to be putting this video out there, and probably keep formatting it a little bit differently. But thank you everybody for watching. Please, I'm going to put the Shop Local blog in the comments tab. Please shoot a question or comment below, and we will go ahead and try to get those answered, and I look forward to discussions. Thanks everyone.